Oh, hey there. Welcome back. Just came back from work. Alright. Man, you look really tired. How was your day? You was pretty tired or something? I understand. You wanna go to bed already? Alright, tell you what. I'll give you a piggyback ride. How does that sound? Pretty alright? Alright, come on, let's go. Man, what a storm outside there is tonight. Here we are. A warm, comfy bed. How's my day? It was pretty alright. A little hectic. Pretty much, pretty boring. Nothing too extraordinary. Tell you what, I'll round you to sleep. How does that sound? Sounds like a good idea. Alright. Then I'll tell you about my dreams. Funny enough, I wrote them down, so. Alright. Let me see if I can find them. And here we are. Alright, I'll tell you about my crazy dream. In the meantime, just try to close your eyes. I'm gonna start. So it opens up. The dream opens up in the city of Guanajuato, Mexico. As it rains extremely hard and the night is very dark. I find myself in a small, worn-down house where me, my younger brother, and mother reside due to the nature's affliction and the ever-expanding rumors of the dead rising from their graves and trying to eat people's brains. On this fateful night, I decided to venture out and confirm that the rumors were true, and the streets were littered with bright stores and homes which were infested with Mexican citizens in the thousands. Truly quite unsettling, but I told my mother I needed to leave and venture the world, even if it killed me. Ironically, she seemed rather sad to accept the right circumstances. With a sad grin from my mother, she accepted reality and proceeded to hand me a silver ring. That specific design resembled a pair of octopus tentacles, wrapping around the finger and touching tips in the center. Sadly, I proceeded to drop it and could no longer find it, as the floor was littered with broken jewelry. My mother decided to venture out, and I never saw her again, as she faded into this once zombies. As I ventured out into the roof of the house, which only became floor until an expanding array of homes, a group of zombies spotted me and decided to attack. Not backing down, I confronted them with whatever I could find. Eventually, the dream shifted into a strange boss battle between the zombies, now human, and their boss. The boss kept taunting me and my group of survivors, friends perhaps, and proceeded to coordinate an assault against us by having his minions shoot metal tipped arrows at us. Some hit me, while others just abundant the floor, where my teammates encouraged me to pick up the bow laying on the floor and fight back. So I did, fighting relentlessly and pinning one and throwing arrows. When the bow no longer worked. Truly a way to go out, I thought to myself. Unexpectedly, the scenery changed once again, now being a strange mix of my middle school and elementary. Fusion into a matter of discrepancy. The restrooms full of filth, and senior boys who thought they could bully their underclassmen any chance they got. Truly made me feel sick to the core of my stomach. Probably the connotation those places hold with me growing up. I proceeded to walk down the corridors of my elementary school, floor tiled with the white tiles, much with a variety of colors. The brick walls painted sky baby blue, eventually coming to a clearing, their main entrance / library, and where a set of military men were at work building makeshift classrooms, mainly involving the wooden frame of a room to indicate separation of classrooms. I decided to sit next to an old friend, a face I no longer recall now, sparking up a loud enough conversation to attract the teacher's attention. It seemed like my fifth grade teacher, which ordered us to separate. When the girl decided to get up and move desks, I did what I thought was right and moved. I ended up next to many individuals, what I considered friends in middle school. We chatted a lot until we were handing metallic frames and tools, being tasked to build a pallet in the shortest amount of time. Since I worked with these on a daily, I took charge and coordinated the group into measuring and cutting when one more and finally come another shift. This time we were parading in the streets of an old neighborhood where my aunt and cousin used to live, but where her father now resides. I made my way into the work location, riding the Ripley, my car, and missing the exit, so I decided to speed up, make a U-turn, eventually arriving back and being able to enter. As everyone paraded to the neighbor's house, which belonged to my cousin's aunt, it was now a 3 to 4 story house resembling that of good witches in old horror films. A bit lopsided and crooked, but painted with beautiful dark purple and pumpkin orange and blue. I carried the Ripley on my back now and trying to hurt anyone when in front house. I saw a little friend, much older, maybe in her what now seems to be home. Sorry, wrong page. Now seems in her 20s, with beautiful hair. I last saw her with her uncannily attributes truly noticeable against her thin but very attractive frame, short glasses, and heels. Appearing in the class I was with, now a teacher dressed in a black skirt and a black coat. We chatted, and she told me I could ride the Ripley in the parade, and I was ecstatic, as everyone generally liked how the car looked. I eventually stopped at the front, seeing her again, flirting a bit with her, and she said she would be back, though she just needed to change. And she disappeared into what now seems to be her home. The many-storied house. And that was pretty much my dream. There's more, but I can't tell you about that because I don't want to get my ass beat. So this is what I'll do instead. I will read you a dinosaur book called Eyewitness Dinosaur. I don't know what dinosaurs say. It's a little quirky and cheesy, but I think you'll like this book. Alright, it may be a little basic, but you know, whatever you need to fall asleep. For some reason, there's a cat now. Okay, so we're looking at what were the dinosaurs. Long ago, strange beasts roamed the world. Some grew big as a barn, others were smaller than a hen. Some walked on 4 legs, others on 2. Some were fierce hunters, others were peaceful plant eaters. These backbone land animals are called dinosaurs. Dinosaurs made terrible lizards, and like lizards, dinosaurs were reptiles. But instead of crawling, they walked upright, and some dinosaurs had feathers rather than scaly skin. In chilly air, instead of dozing over it, some dinosaurs could still act by generating their own body heat. Dinosaurs ruled Earth for 160 million years, flourishing on land more successfully than any other group of backbone animals. Then 65 million years ago, they mysteriously died off, except for one group, the dinosaurs that we call birds. science. Paleontologists divided dinosaurs into two groups, according to how their hip bones were arranged. Most saurischians had hip bones like lizards and were two-legged, meat-eating theropods, or four-legged, plant-eating sauropods. The ornithoceans had hip bones like birds and were plant-eaters. They included two-legged ornithopods, as well as plated, armored, and horned dinosaurs, which were all four-legged. Bony plates or spikes ran along the backs of stegosaurs or plated dinosaurs, and bony body and armor protected the ankylosaurs, or armored dinosaurs. Ceratopsians, or horned dinosaurs, bore horns on their head and bony frills over their necks. Family tree, pages 4 to 65 show all these dinosaurs. How all these dinosaurs were related. Triassic times. The Triassic period lasted from around 250 to 200 million years ago. It was the first part of the Mesozoic era, often called the Age of Dinosaurs. At this time, a mighty ocean surrounded a single massive continent. Some parts of the land were hot, and others were warm. Deserts covered inland regions caught up from moist winds that blew in from the ocean. The land plants that yet to appear were reptile ancestors of mammals, and many kinds of prehistoric reptiles thrived in these conditions. Among the reptiles were lizards, plant-eating dinosaurs, and the ancestors of crocodiles. First dinosaurs appeared in the latter half of the Triassic. Some fed on plants, while others ate reptiles and the mammals' ancestors. Above them flew the skinny-winged pterosaurs and other reptiles, swam in shallow offshore seas. Jurassic times lasted from around 200 to 145 million years ago. Middle part of the Mesozoic era, and sometimes called the Age of Giants because huge sauropod dinosaurs flourished at the time. By now, the supercontinent Pangaea had begun to crack, where great rifts split from the Earth's continental crust as the Atlantic Ocean formed, then widened, separating lands on either side. Most winds from the seas could reach many inland regions, bringing rain to places that once been deserts. Fish swarmed everywhere. Plants began to grow in barren lands, providing food for new kinds of large and small plant-eating dinosaurs. Above these, pseudosaurs shared the air with the first birds, descendants of small predatory dinosaurs. Early salamanders swam in lakes and streams, and Jurassic Sea swam with big swinging reptiles. Many of these hunted fish that resemble some of those alive today. Cretaceous times. Cretaceous period lasted from 145 to 65 million years ago, close to the Mesozoic era, marking the climax of the Age of Dinosaurs. Climates remained warm and mild, but great changes happened to our planet. Flowering plants began to replace older kinds, seas flooded low-lying lands, and continents split up and moved apart. The landmass separated the dinosaurs became cut off from one another, adapted to different environments. In the late Cretaceous period, there were probably more kinds of dinosaurs than ever before. Dinosaurs flourished for more than 160 million years, then about 65 million years ago, all disappeared except for the small theropods that we know as birds. Most of these other sizable creatures vanished too, such as the gigantic swinging reptiles and skinny-winged flying reptiles called pseudosaurs. Great changes must have happened to the world to drive so many kinds of animals into extinction. At least two great disasters struck. First came a series of massive volcanic eruptions, then an asteroid, as big as a city, hit Earth from the force of a colossal nuclear explosion. How do we know? We know what long-dead dinosaurs were like because paleontologists have dug up their remains. Most of these belong to corpses buried under mud, sand, or volcanic ash that slowly hardened into rock. Minerals filled pores and bones and hardened them or replaced them altogether, turning bone to stone in a process called permineralization. All that is left are usually fossilized bones that have been buried in the ground for millions of years. Sometimes, though, the shapes of the body's soft parts, skin, tendons, and muscles have survived, when scientists pressure for a glimpse of soft anatomy. First fossil finds. People have been unearthing the fossil bones of giant creatures long before they knew they were discovering what we call dinosaurs. Scientific dinosaur discovery began in England in the early 1820s. Dr. Gideon Mantle began collecting large fossilized bones and teeth dug up in a Sussex prairie. He believed they came from a giant prehistoric reptile called it Iguanodon. Soon the bones of two or more monstrous animals came to light. British scientist Richard Owen told him that all three belonged to a single group of reptiles, for which he invented the term Dinosauria, meaning terrible lizards. The term appeared in print for the first time in 1842, and the hunt for dinosaurs would soon spread around the world. One day, say, dinosaur and must be a picture of beasts as tall as a house. In fact, most dinosaurs were no bigger than an elephant in weight less, but some theropods were the longest and most massive animals ever to walk on land. Built a bit like giant giraffe, Brachiosaurus stood as high as 4-story building. Diplodocus measured up to 110 feet, long as a row of 3 buses. Both dinosaurs lived in North America. South America's Argentinosaurus was as long as Diplodocus, a bulkier, almost as heavy as 10 bull elephants. Perhaps the largest of all dinosaurs was North America's Amphicoelius. Sadly, scientists found only part of one, which vertebrate, and lost it. Any of these giants could have stepped on the tiniest theropods and not even noticed. The theropod Compsognathus was a little bigger than a chicken. Bird-like Microraptor was smaller still. Scientists now know of tinier feathery theropods that are even close to the original birds. Dinosaur evolution. Dinosaurs seem wonderfully weird and different from humans, and yet their skeletons are based on the same plan as ours, because they had a skull, backbone, hip bones, and bones to support their arms and legs. The reason for these similarities is that both dinosaurs and humans evolved from the same prehistoric backbone animal. Evolution is the process by which species gradually changes over time, certain traits allow animals to adapt and survive. In a changing environment and over many generations, these ultimately form a new species. Those four-legged animals that breathe in water and eventually on land. For instance, from a fish with fins. One group of these animals became our mammal ancestors, and another group evolved into reptiles, and from strong reptiles came the dinosaurs. Heads and brains. The dinosaur head was built around a skull made of separate bones that slotted together and support the jaws and protect the brain. There were holes for eyes, ears, nostrils, and jaw muscles, and often extra holes that save weight. Dinosaur heads come in a variety of shapes and sizes. Some skulls were lightly built with slender bones. Other dinosaurs had heavy, solid-looking hardwood skulls. Each skull close to brain that was relatively smaller and less complex than the brains of most mammals. Some theropods and brain as large as those in certain modern birds. These dinosaurs may have very keen senses and could probably respond swiftly to their surroundings. Horns and head crest. The skulls of many dinosaurs had bumps, horns, or head crests. These dinosaurs probably used either for display, to scare a rival, or impress a mate, or to act as signals that helped other dinosaurs spot fellow members of their species from a distance. Head crests were made of thin, fragile bone, had been used only for display, was coated with sturdy bumps, and horns could have served as weapons of attack or defense. Thickened skulls seem to have been made for butting heads with rivals, and long horns were for jabbing or shoving of the horns of two rivals were to learn in their lock. But perhaps the most effective use of bump, crest, and horns was fighting off enemies or predators. Senses and communication. Dinosaurs depended on sight, smell, taste, hearing, balance, and touch to tell them how to find food and mates, and to detect danger. Because organs like eyes and nostrils, seldom fossilized anatomists cannot examine a dinosaur's sense organ directly to judge how well they work. But there are clues in parts of the dinosaur's skull. For instance, holes for the eyes help to tell their size and the way of the face, and the shape of the brain piece in the skull make sure that the brain is contained. At large, footprints, demonstrating hearing and smell. Anatomy studying these clues found that many dinosaurs had senses as acute as those animals living today. Meat eaters. Many large eating dinosaurs had jaws, used as weapons for killing and tearing up big game. The head was large with strong muscles, powering jaws that were ringed with knife-like teeth. These were used to cut through skin and flesh, bulky plant-eating dinosaurs could use. And swords would use its powerful jaws to seize and kill its victims and tear off massive chunks of meat. Not all theropods had heads for tackling such heavy tasks. Heads of spinosaurs, shaped for seizing fish, small shark-toothed cotylosaurs, warlord lizards whole. Beaked helmets, ostrich mimics were toothless and snapped up insects. But also fed on leaves and fruit. Plant eaters. Jaws, teeth, stomach, and gut of herbivores. Plant-eating dinosaurs were made for cropping, chewing, and digesting vegetation. Broad-snouted armored dinosaurs were unfussy eaters, while armored dinosaurs were enormous and picked up just plants they liked. Sauropods tried twigs with teeth shaped like spoons or pencils and swallowed leafy mouthfuls whole. The beaks, horned dinosaurs lashed to tough hyper's vegetation that were sharp, cheap teeth chewed into whole. Hadrosaurs, dark-bearded dinosaurs, got these with their toothless beaks and chewed them with batteries of cheap teeth. Most ornithischians probably had fleshy cheeks to hold food while chewing. All of these herbivores had long intestines to digest large amounts of plant food. Long and short necks. Sauropods had the longest necks of all dinosaurs, some more than 5 times as long as a giraffe's. Sauropods and pteropods were the first animals that could graze on treetop leaves while standing on the ground. In contrast, most armor-plated horned dinosaurs had short, strong necks and generally fed on vegetation near the ground. The length of a plant-eating dinosaur's neck determined which types of vegetation it could browse. Pteropods had a muscular, S-shaped neck, like birds. Large meat-eaters such as Tyrannosaurus had massive necks, while smaller theropods such as velociraptors had slim necks that uncoiled like springs when attacking prey. The backbone story. The body of a large plant-eating dinosaur such as theropod had to bear an enormous load measuring several tons. Most of that weight was carried by the backbone between shoulders and hips. This section of backbone served a little like the central beam of a house. But instead of helping to hold up a roof, it supported the head, neck, tail, ribs, and the heavy internal organs that the ribs protected. This included the heart, lungs, liver, and a great gut full of food. The sauropod backbone was made up of interlocking vertebrae, many of which were hollowed out for lightness. All about tails. Dinosaurs used their tails for many different purposes. More importantly, the tails help the animals to move around. Each side of the dinosaur tail anchored a muscle that pulled the leg on the side backward in order to push the body forward. Because a muscle pulls at both ends at once, most theropods' tails must have held from side to side as they walk. Tails also help front-feet dinosaurs to keep their balance as they walked or ran. The sauropod rearing its head might have supported its body on a tripod made up of its tail and both hind legs. Terrifying tails. Tails of slow, plant-eating dinosaurs often provided the best defenses. Sauropods, Ankylosaurus, and Stegosaurus had sharp teeth, and most were without dangerous claws, but many had a tail that could be used as a weapon. Certain these sauropods, commencing long tails with lash-like ribs. Tails tipped with large bony clubs helped some Ankylosaurus fend off meat-eating dinosaurs. Their spike-tail Ankylosaurus too. The longest tail spikes belonged to the Stegosaurus. When a large sharp-toothed attacker was at risk when Stegosaurus starts swishing its tail on the fence. Some animals today also have tails that double as weapons, but the dinosaur had the strongest rear end defenses of all. Plates and cells. The late Jurassic witnessed massive Stegosaurus with distinctive rows of plates on its back must have been quite a sight. Features such as plates, cells, and humps lining the back of many other dinosaurs were known. We know this from the bones with tall bony spines, plates, and slabs found in the fossil backbones of these animals. Strange array of these structures were present in Stegosaurus, and some unusual sauropods, ornithopods, and pteropods were recorded with either horny suits, skin, or fatty tissue. But scientists still argue about the exact purpose of these structures. Arms and hands. dinosaur's arms and hands. Oh, I see you fell asleep. Well, that's good. Sleep tight. Now sleep tomorrow.